LEDs part 2. Okay, not quite part 2. Pretty much the same thing, but this is on my emax 250 quad. Ignore the ones up here. These are strobe lights activated by a switch on a channel. Oh, what's different about this one? Let me get to that in a second. So, the first thing is these arms aren't thick enough to have the LEDs face out the back. So I put 2 on the top and 2 on the bottom on each side. And again, it's serial, so I'll have a picture up later that shows you how that was done. And because this is a carbon frame and not G10 like my Flip 260, I had to use something. I use servo tape to attach these. Very thin, and it protects the contacts, you know, the copper from hitting the carbon, and then that'll causes sparks and stuff. I've seen it. And it can damage stuff pretty bad. The other difference with this one is I do not have a variable BEC on this, so I've got this this little green thing here is one of those Pololu step downs, so it provides 5 volts, and I wasn't sure. I don't know if you remember my previous video. It has to be 4.7 volts or less for the signal to work. So the BEC voltage has to be 4.7 or less, because the signal voltage is 3.3, and if you have too high a difference in voltage, then the signal doesn't work, and your LEDs will light up, but they'll just stay white. So I measured this, and it turned out it was 5.1, and that's not good. Lens cap. So that was too high. So I attached a diode. There you go. A diode to bring down the voltage. So it's an 1N4001, I think is the code for it. Basically, it brings down the voltage by a tenth or 10%, I think. So if you have 5.1, it'll bring it down by about a half a volt, and it did. I measured it after I installed the diode, and it was about 4.65 approximately. So that works perfectly, actually. And here's a picture. So there's the diode. A second one just to show how I attached it. The bulge in the red power wire is obviously where I put the diode, and then that's the direction. The diode itself has a band on it, so that tells you that's the negative side. So the current goes from the negative through the LEDs and comes back to the positive of your board, wherever you're getting your positive power from. So the flow, don't think of it as negative, positive side. How about this way? Think of it as the flow. It goes from negative to positive. So that diode, I snipped off the ends, soldered the power wire on both ends, put it into the heat shrink, and shrinked it up. That's what that little bulge is. So that brings down the voltage for the power to 4.65. And then the signal wire, all I did was heat shrink that so that I could put it under the naze and not touch anything else, because it's carbon and bare board and whatever. Let me get a picture of that. So there's the signal wire for pin 5. Now I didn't, when I first put together this naze board, I didn't do all 10 of those pins. I didn't attach the pins to those 10 surface mounts. So all I needed was pin 5, and I took a single right angle pin. I bent the one down a bit so it'll touch the pad. I glued that plastic to the board, to the bottom of the board, and then I soldered the bent pin to the pad, and that's my signal pin, and it works great. It thinks I'm low voltage, and you can see the, oh man, it looks like I have to put a 4-cell on here, because this is doing what it's supposed to be doing. Let me darken this a little bit. I am not dimming the LEDs, I'm darkening the camera. So it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. These are warnings saying I'm low voltage. Okay, now I have a 4-cell. Huh. Now I know what's causing a different problem I'm having on a different quad. Okay, anyway, so here's the same thing as before, only I have 2 on the bottom, 2 on the top. The 2 won't show unless I arm it, because the great thing about this board is if you go past a certain angle, the LEDs go off, telling you that you're at that angle. So, like when you first arm it, if the lights don't come on, you know you're not going to arm it correctly because you're at a greater angle than you're supposed to be. So throttle, hold on. There we go. Now it's armed very carefully. So red on the bottom, again, indicators. One red on the top, and then throttle indicators in the center. I figure the only time you really need to see the aileron or elevator indicators is in forward flight. Most of the time this will be at this angle, bent forward. So you know, if I'm like this and I'm throttling up, it's going to come up towards whoever's behind me. So I figured that's the better place to see throttle indicators, is from the top, and then turning and braking from the bottom. So here we go. Elevator, aileron, aileron. Alright, let's disarm it. Okay. Signal wire from the bottom of the board, like in the picture. 5 volt here, power and ground, and then diode is somewhere under this board. So the order goes from in, out to the one underneath, into the one underneath on the right side, out to the one on top, and then terminates right here. And let's pull up a clean flight. So here's the lights. I got the 2 on the top, and notice they're slightly different colors for the inboard ones, and then the 2 on the bottom. And if I highlight all of these, see, all of these are the same. You can do multi-select by holding down the control key while you click these. But you can see that these are warnings and indicator, and then I chose a color and red. And then for these 2 are the same, these 2 top inboard ones, and that's warnings, throttle, and arm status. And then that color was 6 is green. So when I arm, those turn green, and then as I increase or decrease throttle, even when it's not armed, it'll change color. And then of course low battery, they all flash red, even the ones on the bottom. And that is how I set it up. So that's pretty much it. I wasn't sure if I really needed these for this one, because I only plan to, well, not only, but mostly plan to fly this one outdoors, and during the daylight, you know, these LEDs aren't that easy to see. But for anybody following close by or on a cloudy day or the occasional indoor flight, you know, they don't weigh much and they don't add much complexity. So I figured better than not having them, you know, preventing a crash, somebody running the back of me, or acting as a lost model alarm. Well, you know, in addition to the beeper, I can see it easier. I'll probably take the strobes off because I don't really think those are necessary. It'd be nice if CLI had a strobe function off a switch, so if you enable some kind of strobe just by a toggle, that'd be great. But other than that, turned out just as good as the 260. You know, I did a little shorter because I had less room with the motor wires and such. But again, looks fantastic. I'm really loving the LEDs. All right, thanks for watching.